Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and better late than never coming at you. Well, because we wanted to make sure we tied up some loose ends first, of course, with press conferences and other playoff games and this, that, and the other things. So, apologies for a little bit of the delay, but guess who I brought with me? My good friend, Mr. Brian E. Roach. What's going on? My friend, my buddy, my pal, chum?
You know, my dad says you should never be happy if someone calls you their pal.
Pal? Yeah, I don't know, pal. Bud?
Pal,
buddy?
He says pal stands for personal blank liquor.
That's
and
pretty
I'm
good,
like,
man. I've never
so
heard that
no, I'm
before.
out. I'm not your pal. I'm your bud. I'm your brother from another mother, but I ain't your pal.
You got the little buddy Jesus pointing going like out of the Kevin Smith movies. Well, Brian, I'm going to start this show off and right to blunt and to the point. Did you expect anything different out of Sunday night's game between the Steelers and Chiefs?
I'll be frank. I didn't expect the first 15 minutes to go the way they did.
No.
I was very happy for 15 minutes, and then basically the game went as I would have thought it would.
Yeah, so in a little bit here, just a little note on the postgame. We're not going to go through all of these series because we really don't have to. The Steelers punted 4 times in the first quarter, 7 straight times, and then on the 8th possession took a knee to finish the first half, and then only had the ball 4 times in the second half. Their drives consisted of, on offense, 3 plays for 0 yards, 3 plays for 2 yards, 3 plays for a -3. The drive off of TJ, well, we'll get to TJ Watt, I guess, but off the interception, 5 for 13, so he didn't capitalize. Also, a penalty got tossed in there. 6 for 20, 3 for 8, 3 for 5, 1 for -1. That was the knee. But then another 1 for -1 to start their first series in the third quarter. Man, do I feel bad for Najee Harris. He's out there playing his out of his mind, giving it his all, injured, has his arm wrapped up like it's cybernetic or something, and he puts it on the ground. And no acknowledgement, by the way, of Chris Collinsworth or any of those guys that
You would expect him to?
Oh, it's the first time he's fumbled all season. It's like with an asterisk, man. I mean, I get that it happened, but it was almost like when you know what rolls downhill, in this game, I was expecting that to happen at some point, and it did. And you're just like, and you just hang your head low and everything else. Steelers score, touchdown, 10 plays, 75 yards. Too little, too late. Back-to-back touchdown drives. Actually, the other one, 15 for 70. I guess it was good they didn't completely fold like your summer furniture, but just the offense, man, there's a lot of things going around. I guess we'll hit on some aspects, and we're not going to get into who's the next quarterback. I'm already tired of hearing about it, by the way, and all these other things. Just in this show, I kind of want to just stay focused on some of the storylines that have come out of this one. And I guess my biggest one is what the heck did you expect here? I mean, believe it or not, Brian, the time of possession in this game was a dead even 30 minutes for both of them. I don't even know how that ended up happening, to be completely honest.
Well, second half, they had nice long drives. First half, they had tiny drives. And so did the Chiefs. They just had more of them.
Yeah, that's, well, at least time of possession-wise, because yardage-wise, when you get over into that category, let me see, I'm pulling this up. That's the one that, like,
that's going to change things a little bit.
I mean, yeah, 478 net yards total for the Kansas City Chiefs to 257. And the funny thing is the Steelers ran one more play than the Chiefs did, 66-65 on offense. There's a lot of, I guess, ugly to go around here, or people want to blame, people want scapegoats. I don't know. I have a hard time even going through here. I guess you'll have maybe one or two standout performances. So I want to start all the way at the top, because I actually saw someone say the Rooney should sell the team. That's the first thing that came out.
Actually, they said the Rodneys should sell the team.
You see? Yeah,
Yes, they said the Rodneys. Well, okay, I don't know who they are or what team they own, but
yeah,
you're wrong.
Well, I don't want the Rodneys to be part of ownership either.
No, neither do I. No respect at all.
Oh, how about out of just happenstance of all of this? Me and the kid are going through all of the Simpsons episodes. We're on like season 8 of, I don't know, 5,000. This one was Rodney Dangerfield. He was Mr. Burns' estranged, lost son. How about that for a quinky dink? But we're big Rodney Dangerfield fans. Oh, it was unmistakable too. You were immediately, you're like, it's the Leo DiCaprio. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood meme, just pointing, hey, I know that one. You know what I mean? So, anyways, ownership ain't going anywhere. This isn't Bob Nutting. This isn't the Pittsburgh Pirates. It's actually the Pens. Actually, I shouldn't even say that because now they've got the Red Sox ownership group. But geez, oh man, I mean, people. They're real big mad about this. I'm like, kind of, where are your expectations at that you want everyone fired? I think I figured this out, Brian. And it probably doesn't apply to like 99% of the people listening. Even the few Steelers haters that we have jump in who've become fans of the show that aren't even Steelers fans. It's we love you too, just not as much.
Yes, we're talking about you, Charles.
Well, he's one of them,
and others,
and others. There's a couple because there's no way some of these people could be Steelers fans with some of the things that they say, and it's just again, it's like, what is your expectation? I think I figured it out. So these are the same people that are like, and this might hit a few nerves, but it's like the people that are like Yankees fans and Lakers fans and Steelers fans. They gotta back a winner. The Steelers haven't been in the basement, like since we said, of their division since 1988. So they go into work, they go around the water cooler, whatever, and they talk smack to anyone that they come into contact with, and they're the annoying part of the fan base that nobody likes, that gives everyone else a bad name. So they're embarrassed that the Steelers lose 42-21 there. And it's like, now they got to tuck tail because they talk so much smack all week long. So now it's fire everybody, fire this, fire that, because my feelings are hurt over a football game. Ben Roethlisberger said it, and this actually, some people got upset about this too. He said, we're not even supposed to be here, we're just going to have fun. And people got mad about that, and it was like, well, he's kind of throwing it back at the media people who are saying that.
Like, please don't make me get the sarcasm sign out. Just please don't. Have some... Like, the world is not full of Sheldon Coopers, if you get the Big Bang Theory reference. You should be able to understand sarcasm. Ben's been doing it for 18 years. So, the
old gunslinger don't have it anymore.
It's like a second language to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't get it, man. They got some bragging rights against the Browns. They swept the Browns. They had to beat the Browns and had to beat the Ravens and swept them as well in order to even have a shot. And then everybody was like, they were a week early on throwing the dirt on Mike Tomlin and the team. And I think that's really what it came down to. See, I told you so. And it was like, no, you didn't tell me anything. I'm sitting here, with Joe Valero last week, former Chiefs offensive lineman. Of course, the Chiefs offensive lineman that scores in this game. And TJ's like, he has his hands up like, is this legal?
Like, whatever. Like, no. If Chris Collingsworth says it's not legal, it's doubly illegal.
That's just it's hilarious, to be completely honest. And it also showed up on Angry Runs, and Kyle Brandt was going out of his mind, and like nobody actually like said, is this something that's permitted? Is this permissible? So I don't know. I've kind of given up on some of that, but it's just kind of like most of us, if you were paying close enough attention to what's going on out there, didn't think that the Steelers had a chance to go all the way. Making the playoffs. Oh, is that your biggest achievement? And it's like, they haven't won a playoff game in whenever, and it's like, you go by playoff appearances, okay? Because now 75% of the league has not won a playoff game this year, and that's every year, okay? So you got how many teams that are left right now? Four in each conference, 8 of the 32, a quarter of them. And a lot of times you got some repeats. It's nice to see some new blood in there. I think everything's mixed up pretty nice on the AFC side at least, so I'm kind of happy to see that. But you look at some of this, and it's like, what teams really have more either regular season victories, because you got to win in the regular season to get into playoffs, playoff appearances, division titles, and you got the Patriots and you got the Packers, and that's about it. Maybe the Seahawks and Saints are somewhere in that conversation. Steelers are definitely in that top 5. And now the Chiefs, of course, over the last few years. You're talking about a team that has won, maybe hasn't won, but has appeared in the last 3 AFC championship games, last 2 Super Bowls, won one of them. You're going up against the juggernaut. I also think, Brian, that some people just didn't realize what talent was out there on the field, what players were lost during the year, free agency, injuries, retirements, etc. And maybe even ourselves were a little facetious on how those players were going to be replaced. For all intents and purposes, people were saying, now they're getting into the rebuild. No, they've already done that. That's already begun. And they still got to this finish line with one of the strongest schedule, at least on paper, heading in and still through the season in the NFL. And with all of these new players in this division that they weren't supposed to be better than the Ravens or the Browns, no one was thinking the Bengals were going to make where they were going to be. And, I got something with that too, but I'll get back to that later. And it's just, what else? Are you really that upset that this team made the playoffs? Like, are you really upset, like that stupid upset that they lost? Trust me, I'm not sitting here like trying to be smart-ass Joe Thomas and say, oh, Steelers, you got your participation trophy. I would be happier than, a pig in you-know-what if they win this game or make any kind of run. But realistically, I realize this isn't the same Steelers team that played in 2008 with an elite defense and had these high expectations. They didn't win 13 games in a season or anything of that nature. They struggled at points. They snuck in with the Jaguars beating the Colts. And yes, the Steelers actually do deserve to be there. You know why? Because the Colts didn't want it. So, you don't take the feather out of the cap for making the postseason. Everyone's going to say they're not going to get any further with Mike Tomlin. They wouldn't have gotten this far without Mike Tomlin.
Look, you can't. It is. Do the Arizona Cardinals not deserve to have been in there because they got spanked by a Rams team that is not as good as the Chiefs? Do the New England Patriots not deserve to be there because they got, completely blanked?
Well, Bill Belichick won all these rings and stuff, man. So he gets a pass.
You can't have a double standard. Look, the Steelers. Yes, at the beginning of the season, because we're all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at the beginning of the season, we had stars in our eyes. We were like, oh, it's all going to work out. The offensive line is going to gel. We said those things. I'll own it. And by midseason, we went, it ain't happening. Right? You can acknowledge the warts that you have. This team had a massive amount of warts. Also, when we were saying those things, didn't know David Castro wasn't going to be back yet. We didn't know Tyson Alualu was going to be gone for the season. We didn't know Stephon Tuitt was never going to play it down. There are a lot of things we didn't know when we had loftier expectations. As the season wore on and these things kind of played their way out, you understood, hey, it ain't going to go that way. With what they had on offensive and defensive lines, that's the core of your team, period. Forget everything else. That's the heart of both sides of the ball. With where they were there, it is absolutely an amazing job by the coaching staff and the players that did play, that they got as far as they did. I get that we all have this certain expectation. It's Super Bowl or bust, right? Any season's a failure that doesn't end in a championship. I agree to a certain extent with that mentality. Like, that's the way I view every season. I want to win the Super Bowl. I also am not completely detached from reality and realize we're not going to win the Super Bowl every year, right? And sometimes, no matter what happens, you're lucky to get as far as you can get. This is the definition of you rise to the level of your incompetence. This was as far as this team was going to go. And it's fine because guess what? It's better than 75% of the rest of the league. Would you rather be the Jaguars?
Or the Jets? Yeah, some people would. Some people would. They think that, and that's the comment I was holding off on. No, Bruce Murray and Rich Gannon, once again, it just happens to be the time of day I'm in the car, and I hear the Sirius XM NFL radio, and Bruce Murray's talking about, if 2 years ago I would have told you the Bengals were going to make the playoffs, look at what a great job they did. They went and got their quarterback, and look at how the quarterback turns it around. They had the worst season in the league, and by default, they get the pick at the top of the pecking order, anybody they want. So, of course, they get their guy. This leads me to front office. It's just like, how ridiculous is this? Because you got guys saying this about the Bengals. What about the Jaguars? You're going to tell me they're a playoff team next year? I mean, it's possible. Maybe Trevor Lawrence turns the corner or whatever. Maybe he's stuck in a rut with yet a team that's looking for a head coach again and turning a leaf. There's people that are like Kevin Colbert. I actually saw someone criticize. This might not be the first time I've mentioned this on this show. Might be the same guy criticizing again. Every draft pick in the NFL is not going to have a gold jacket and a bust in Canton. They're not going to have an NFL career, a great deal of them. There's not enough spots you're bringing in. There's only like, a little over 1,000 or whatever, 53 times 32, whatever that ends up being. You know what? For the heck of it, let's see what it is. Okay, so 1,700 spots, but there's...
Math with Joe.
Yeah, math with Joe, the calculator. I have the little button on the keyboard too, which really helps. It's like worn out because I use it so much. But anyways, yeah, like what are you supposed to do here when you have 250 some odd players enter the league, brand new every year? They're not all making the roster. There's still undrafted players that end up coming out here. There's somebody complaining about Presley Harvin, who had a fine game, by the way, and kind of to steal a quote from Chris Carter that I saw. He's not NFL Chris Carter, but local DK Sports Chris Carter.
My new spirit animal.
Yeah.
My new spirit animal.
Yeah. I did say that, didn't I?
Yeah.
He's been saying a lot of good stuff lately that I agree with, and that's not the only reason why we like him, but it's fair. Like, even Jerry Dulac, I think, was kicking back a little bit of too much of Grandpa's cough syrup.
Or Bouchette, one of them.
Well, unfortunately, I don't have very many alerts set for him anymore. He has gone completely off the rails, and it's just like, what do you gain by doing this? And it was like, in my opinion, is if you're saying all these things now that the season is finished after the game, it comes off cowardly. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. It's like, well, you didn't say a lot of these things before, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for quite a few of these people, but I don't know. I felt like, man, is this the same guy I've been following? Like, Jerry was just out there, and some people will say, well, it's just brutally honest. I'm like, you know what? Trying to say you're a realistic fan sometimes, your version of realism is just an excuse to be an asshole and be negative. And there's no place for that. Why even be a fan? Why even watch the games? So Presley Harvin, getting back to this, 7th round pick, like 6 picks from being Mr. Irrelevant, and somebody's trying to say that he's a bust. What do you think a 7th round pick is? The guy's barely drafted. Every pick doesn't work that way.
Yeah. In general terms, once you get past the 4th round, assume 5 through 7 are busts. Why? That's even the dregs. If you find a freaking diamond in the rough in there, hey, great. But that's Antonio Brown's, Tom Brady's of the lower draft. Those are rarities, like the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. The majority of those round picks are guys who are filling out your special teams roster or flat out aren't in the league past a year or two. So get over the criticism of 5th through 7th round picks. That's huge draft capital. It's major stuff. Go stick your head up the PFF rear end and be, an analytics guy who doesn't know what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm trying not to go to TJ Watt just yet, but just so I remember, he's the 4th ranked edge rusher by Pro Football Focus. 4th.
Can you blur what I'm about to do on the screen?
No, don't do that. No, blurring. The beeping was tough enough to get in there. Anything that's extra work, I don't want to have to do. Anyway, So
right over here, you guys can figure out what I'm doing at PFF over here. All right.
Yeah, it was the same guy I was arguing with. Went on this huge Twitter rant right when the season ended. I don't think I even
would
got
that be
a chance to discuss
Mr. SAM?
Yes, rhymes with Pam. Steelers fans are going to be big mad about this and everything else. Yeah, because this guy had to do the mental gymnastics he had to do to justify putting Myles Garrett and Max Crosby ahead of T.J. Watt is just
Let me put
insane.
this as politically correctly as I can. He has a superimposed head of Myles Garrett on some naked man's picture in his room, and he enjoys himself looking at that on a daily basis.
I mean, TJ blasted both of those guys and Max Crosby. I mean, I don't have a problem with people thinking that Myles Garrett is an elite edge rusher.
He is elite.
There's no problem with that. But to put TJ Watt, I don't even know who the third-ranked guy is. That's the problem. I don't even know who else they put ahead of him. I just know that those two were part of that All-Pro team, and it was to justify his earlier comments from a month or two ago, which we saw how TJ could turn a game completely upside down by himself and then woke up the sleeping bear that was the Chiefs, and they went on 6 straight touchdown drives. But I want to go back to the front office because people talking about draft picks and several criticisms. Well, hey, Artie Burns was such a bust. Jarvis Jones, even if he wasn't a bust, he's probably toward the end of his career now. You're pushing on almost 10 years since that pick was made. I mean, guys aren't play forever in the NFL. 18 years out of Ben Roethlisberger is a rarity.
Jarvis Jones was a bust. Was Troy Polamalu a bust?
No,
was Ben
Heath
Roethlisberger
Miller
a bust? Was Heath Miller a bust? Was David DeCastro a bust? Was Marquise Pouncey a bust?
Cam Hayward.
Shut up.
You can keep going.
Shut up. Like, you pick one. Yeah, you've got a chance. Look, who's the idiot quarterback that the Raiders drafted number 1? Jamarcus Russell or whatever? Okay, that's a bust.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. What was Jarvis Jones picked at? In the 20s?
Oh, I want to say he was like 16.
All right.
He was a little higher, but he's in about the same range that they're in right now. But that's what they needed at that time, too. If you would not have went with Jarvis Jones, outside linebacker, at that point, there's let me see. What year was he taken? 2013. He was the 17th overall pick. And then they go out and they get Le'Veon Bell with the very next one. Vince Williams was the 6th rounder in that draft. You get one or two of these players that play. This is coming around to my point of the draft picks overall, Brian. It's like everyone's going to say this is a bust. Why didn't they draft offensive linemen? Because the guys that were available to them, again, Tevin Jenkins, the only one you could have made an argument for is Creed Humphrey. And then are you reaching for Creed Humphrey in the first round, or are you going away from Pat Freiermuth? You got 2 guys that are going to be maybe 10-year players at the skill positions now to help whoever the next quarterback is. And Najee Harris, Pat Freiermuth, and if you don't take those 2 picks, you probably end up with a tackle that's not playing or doesn't play any better than the guys that they already have, and you don't have the playmakers like Harris and Freiermuth, and you don't win 9 games, and you don't end up in the postseason, and you got more to gripe about, and you got more holes on your roster heading into this offseason, of which they'll have a hell of a lot more cap space. That's the other thing. Oh, well, they signed Melvin Ingram. Yeah, in frickin' July, the day when they were reporting to camp, because they got some money freed up because they found out David DeCastro wasn't going to play.
How many sacks and tackles for loss did Mr. Ingram have in that game?
Did he show up on the stat sheet?
That's what I'm asking.
I don't know if he even showed up on the stat sheet, and that's been my point the whole time along. It's a 32-year-old. 32-year-old guy that was meant to be a backup. This wasn't like a major free agent acquisition in March. They were $20 million in the hole to start the offseason. They had to ask Ben to take a pay cut. There was no given that Ben Roethlisberger was returning this season. People have such short memories, or they just don't understand the cap, or they don't understand some of the things that were going on. The best they could do was afford to have Cameron Sutton or come back, and Chris Wormley. And thank God they had gotten those 2 guys. And I understand, look, Trey Norwood got burnt in this game.
Cam Sutton did not have the best of games.
No, but also at the same time, Joe Hayden, when Patrick Mahomes is running around free and extending plays,
there's very little you can do. Yeah.
How much more do I have to say? The Steelers ran 3 plays and punt, 3 plays and punt on offense. These guys were gassed. If the offense could have done any type of sustained drive where they're not punting 7 times in the first half, maybe they only punt, maybe they only have 3 or 4 drives and something that's a little longer and the guys get a little bit of rest, maybe they have that fighter or that puncher's chance, like Joe Valero was talking about in the pregame. That's kind of part of my whole point there. Driving me crazy. Melvin Ingram had one solo tackle.
There you go. So let me make this point real quick. Again, if they are playing, what's the term I'm desperately looking for when the offense and defense play well together?
Consistency?
No. It's like they play off of each other. No, what is it? Tomlin uses this term all the time. Like complementary football.
I knew it was one of those words.
Yeah, it's a code word. Complementary football, right? So if you're playing complementary football in this game, where your offense is actually supporting the effort that the defense put in the first quarter, right? And you get, I don't care if it's 7 points or 10 points out of those drives. Now you take TJ's, sack return or, fumble return for a touchdown. And if you're up 17-0, guess what? Changes the complexion of the game. That's how you get a fighter's chance, right? That's how you get that puncher's chance. But when you've only got half your team playing effectively, the other half is not complimenting the other side, well, everything is still open for the Chiefs. They can do whatever the heck they want, and they did. And at some point, it's impossible. And as you agreed, as you said, on top of that, when you're giving maximum effort and maximum output like that for 15 basically solid minutes in the first quarter, you're beat. You're just gassed, right? They don't have the depth they need right now because so many guys have gotten hurt, right? And even when you pull them in, I mean, let me give credit to Juju. It was nice to see Juju show up and come back out in the game, right? But was he going to be Juju that we all – no, he hasn't played all year basically. So, it wasn't going to be this huge difference maker. And, I can complain until I'm blue in the face and everybody else can say the same thing. Oh, they should just let Ben call all the plays. Yes, they're Matt Canada's plays. Do I think Matt Canada has a great feel for calling a game? No, I don't. But I don't think his plays are bad. I think he has to learn. First-year offensive coordinator. It's different than college, right? It's different.
Yeah. And the personnel. I'm getting there. I was going with the front office because people are complaining, why didn't they do this? I actually saw somebody say, why didn't they add any players before this game? And it's like, to do what? Because somebody saw
players are you going to add?
They saw Eric Weddle go to the Rams, and that was their comment. I'm like, did you watch that game? He didn't even play. He was there. He's like break glass in case of emergency type thing.
What are you going to do? Just go over. You know what? The Patriots lost. Let's go get a whole bunch of their offensive linemen and just. Look, we're going to take your guys for a game because you're out, right? You don't care, do you? You don't mind?
Don't work that way in fantasy football. Okay, so ownership, front office, coaching, head coach. Oh, you're not going to get this far because of Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin gets out-coached again. I mean, I'm sorry, but Deontay Johnson dropping a ball that kills momentum or somebody having a false start or a holding penalty or whatever else that happens in these games – the offense, that's not on Mike Tomlin. Now, people are going to blame Matt Canada here too, Brian, and there's enough blame to go around. Najee Harris is banged up. Your offensive line looks nothing like. Why didn't they repair the offensive line? This is going back to front office at the beginning of the season. Well, we talked about this. They had Trey Turner as training camp starts. They thought they were going to have Zach Banner. He never practices. Kevin Dotson, remember, he was out of shape, and that's the reason he wasn't on the field. No, he was hurt. He didn't end up out there until the third week of training camp. You end up with Dan Moore. You end up with 5 different left guards. They even shut down Kendrick Green, who they did draft as a center. Maybe that was a mistake. Maybe not. Maybe he moves to the interior of the line for this upcoming year. Excuse me. And you have something to work with there. We'll see what happens with Chooks. He'll be a free agent. But 4 of the 5 pieces were not consistent all year long, and then you still didn't have Dan Moore for a game somewhere in that mix. And so, Dan Moore, John LeGlue, J.C. Hassenauer, and Trey Turner when you were supposed to have Zach Banner, Kevin Dotson, yes, Kendrick Green, and then David DeCastro along with Chooks there. That's a completely different lineup than what you were planning on going to battle with. What are you going to do about it? Once you're in training camp, you're not making any big roster moves. And to be able to make the few moves they did, like getting Joe Schobert, because they got a little bit of scratch freed up too little too late. That wasn't the kind of money this cap excuse me. What did I say the numbers were in the back rooms yesterday? I'm trying to find it, but it was lower than 20. The cap was at 182 for this season. It dropped from 198 and 188 in the previous 2 years, and it was 177, only $5 million more than what it was in 2018. You don't think that screws with personnel decisions? Big time does it ever. So how much more can you do to field a team that's going to go up against the Kansas City Chiefs, for example? Excuse me. Anyways.
You don't have a whole replacement team waiting in the wings to go, oh, you know what? Let's just bring these guys in. Look, I'm going to say this one last bit about the Chiefs and the Steelers, right? The Chiefs are not a great opponent for the Steelers right now. The way that they're composed, the way that their team is made up, and this is true of most teams every year, right? There are certain teams that just don't fit well with what you do, right? And when you go through the process of hoping you're going to make a run, you kind of are hoping somebody else takes them out. Somebody who's built to feed them, right? The Chiefs are a bad matchup for this team right now in the way that they're built, right? Who's a good matchup? The people in our division. Why? Because those are the people we have to beat in order to get into the playoffs. Right now, we're good against the Ravens. We swept the Ravens. We swept the Browns. We got our butts whipped by the Bengals twice.
Yeah.
All right. Why? Because the Bengals are now more of a Chiefs-like team than they are a AFC North-like team. It's all a matter of things evolve, things change. We'll just see how conditions progress. This is who the Steelers were this year. It ain't going to be who they are next year because we don't know what we're looking at now.
And this is going to surprise some people, but I don't think they're as far off. Everyone with the panic, draft this guy, draft that guy. I was just talking to one of my buddies. He's a Broncos fan. He was like, you should do something with like a mock draft or showing the top 32 picks or whatever. I don't even know what their needs are in the draft formally until free agency begins.
Until free agency's over, yeah.
You got to do that.
Pick somebody. Yeah.
You got to do that. You got to get through the combine. I mean, we're going to do some report cards on individual players, which isn't why I'm trying to get too much into all of the individuals that are here. But that just kind of explains. So, coaching-wise, this is Matt Canada we're talking about. Yeah, he can share some blame, but when the offensive line can't block for 2 seconds, Ben Roethlisberger, I can't blame him necessarily either, but he's got to decide to go somewhere with the ball, and where's he going to go when guys can't get open downfield? They either don't have time, or they
where's
don't
he going to
get
go
separation.
when it's a free rusher, too? I mean, how many times in the last 3 games have we seen the offensive line just literally blow the scheme and the nose is wide open to come right up? It's not a screen. It's just bad blocking schemes. Either they don't listen to what Ben is doing when he's setting the protection, they're not hearing what they're doing, or when they're trying to get their own schemes set up, they're not understanding.
And that's why I say
it's bad.
I say it's shared because Ben was definitely – Collinsworth says this later when they score. Oh, I don't know why they didn't run no huddle. They tried. They were out on the field for like 30 seconds on the one drive.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's not really good. The possession was 106. It was the second possession. They definitely ran some no huddle there. And then they had 2 in the second quarter, 107 and 103. That was the elapsed the time of possession there on the game clock. You're not even staying off the field for not even 2 minutes, let alone 1. And it's like, what are you paying attention to, Collinsworthless? It's like they try to do this. Ben goes up on the line. He has a run. Okay, so Ben has a choice probably with run pass option, RPO. He can hand the ball off, or he can decide to throw it. That's a Ben decision. That's not a Matt Canada decision. And then he's making changes maybe at the line of scrimmage. Maybe he's calling out, I don't know, some instructions. I kind of always surmise, like, how much time does he have on the play clock? I mean, that play clock's running as soon as they spot the ball. You've got 30 seconds or so to bark out all of these instructions. The radio usually cuts off after 15. So when he's still doing this up until like 1 second where he's snapping the ball on the play clock, which drives me crazy. I don't know why he's always milked as much time as possible, which also, in my opinion, doesn't give them the greatest chance of success there, because if you're an edge rusher, you're just looking, or you're coming after the quarterback, and you're just looking at the clock, at the play clock, it's down to 0, and then you're going, you know what I mean? I don't know. That's always kind of bugged me, but to each their own. I mean, I might be just crying over spilled milk with that, but Ben is making these calls, at the line of scrimmage. He's deciding who to go to, and sometimes that decision is just based on the other player doesn't get open. So if his primary read there is Chase Claypool, and Chase Claypool doesn't get open, he's got to go to his next read. So like I said, it's not just fire this guy. Jump over the defense. We're talking about the trenches already on the offense. The defense, much the same way. You already mentioned Alualu. You mentioned Tuitt. Wormley was out for a few games as well. We'll do some more discussion on report card type stuff, but this is why part of the main problem with stopping the run. But people want to fire Keith Butler. Now, Keith Butler, we're hearing, Aditi Kikawala shows up on 93.7 The Fan, I believe, just the other day in Pittsburgh, and mentions that the rumbling is that Keith Butler will retire. Keith Butler has been around since Bill Cowher days, coaching up linebackers, and you get that too, the Tomlin coaching tree. He's still got guys from Cowher's staff. Like, people don't leave Pittsburgh unless you force them out like a Todd Haley. And Todd Haley isn't anybody's coaching tree. He was already a head coach. Mike Munchak was as well. Terrell Austin's been around the league, and notably he's probably the top name. So that'll PO some people. Oh, they're going to hire someone. They're going to promote internally again. But yep, Terrell Austin isn't necessarily like a Steelers guy. Matt Canada was not a Steelers guy. Matt Canada was exactly what everybody wanted. Get this young mind, offensive mind that can put in some new things and do different things.
Young is he, man? When they show him in the booth, he looks like older than me.
But I mean, he's younger than some guys, though. That's the thing. That's a great.
I'm just saying. I thought he was that. I'm like, oh, this guy's younger than Joe. I looked at him. I'm like, dude looks old as dirt. Maybe that's just what happens when you have to. Well, he's an old looking 50.
49. 49. Oh, no. Today's his birthday. Just turned 49. Happy birthday, Matt Canada.
Happy birthday, Matt Canada.
Sounds like you'll be back next year.
Old looking mofo. Making me at 58 look young, because I look better than you.
Yeah, that's a good point. I kind of thought the same thing. I thought maybe he just chews or something, maybe it's aged him. Crack cocaine is a hell of a drug, as the Chappelle
Crack
show.
Is whack, yo. Crack is whack.
So I mean, just the thing is like they wanted some outside blood. They bring the people into the system a year or two before they get laterally promoted. Then all of a sudden it's just a lateral promotion. That's the Steelers' kind of way of doing these things. It happened before. Bruce Arians was a quarterbacks coach, or maybe he was wide receivers too, I think. Was he wide receivers or was he quarterbacks? But Arians moves up into Ken Wisenhunt's spot when Tomlin's hired, and et cetera, et cetera. That's the way some of these – Randy Fichtner, quarterbacks coach, moves into offensive coordinator. And I feel bad now, as much as trashing – Fichtner as we did, you see these problems have been kind of lingering, and I think the Steelers spent a lot of capital and a lot of focus in the future thinking that some of these pieces like Marquise Pouncey and David DeCastro would still be playing into their mid to 30s or so, and not worrying about offense so much as they had invested in the defense. And now you got to go back and invest in the offense, obviously. It's stunk for the last 3 years for the most part. So I don't think that it's necessarily exclusive to just an offensive coordinator. On the defensive side of the ball, dealing with missing Joe Hayden, you have TJ Watt misses 2 games, half of 4 others, and is still the 4th ranked guy in PFF. You've got pieces that are going to work there. We'll see if Keith Butler ends up what's that one for?
4th ranked PFF.
Oh,
there
yes,
you go.
yes,
that's
yes.
what I'm doing.
Sorry, I forgot you were self-censoring there. Yeah, the salute. But I mean, you got Cam Hayward, and you got some things that may correct itself depending on who comes back. Sounds like Tyson Alualu posted on Instagram and says he's looking forward. This isn't the way he wanted his season to finish, things of that nature. So if Keith Butler leaves, some fans out there will get your wish. The Steelers have led the league in sacks each of the last 5 years, and some people say, well, that's all a one-trick pony. They just sacked the quarterback, and everything else falls into place. You think? There's 2 things that make this league run. Quarterbacks and the guys that go after them. That's it. Those are the guys who get paid. I mean, hello, TJ Watt. And then there are people that weren't going to pay him. Can you imagine what this roster looks like? Or what if he's not out there, they don't win games either. So Keith Butler deserves some credit, and he takes back over the linebackers. He got Bud Dupree, a big contract. He's got TJ Watt in a Defensive Player of the Year conversation in each of the last 3 years. I'm not necessarily going to be thrilled to see him go if he does go. So Tomlin kind of alluded, we've had those conversations, and I swear he said that same thing last year. And of course, we don't know. Kevin Colbert, there's the rumblings. The only people that came from was the NFL Network people that I don't trust, like Ian Rappaport and then Tom Pelissero, who have been known to be wrong. No one else actually came out and said anything. A bunch of people just latched onto that word. The scouting department, that staff, and the GM go through the draft. That's what their contract is. So when it says this might be his last draft and then he retires, that's the reason. I'm just waiting to see any kind of I haven't seen any official word on either one of those people yet. People think there's just rats jumping off the ship. It's like Colbert's been doing this for like 20 years. That's extraordinarily long time for a general manager in the NFL. And at some point, it's got to wear you out. I mean, and he's probably, more than likely, there's going to be another internal hire. Omar Khan, Brandon Hunt, somebody like that that's already there, that's been groomed to continue this way. And what's this way? Oh, it's mediocrity. It's this and that. No, you spoiled brats. It's not having losing seasons and always being in the mix at the end of those seasons. And again, I'm going to take that over imploding the team each year like the Jets or the Jags, or maybe you get that little scrap of success finally like the Bucks, which it took them to get Tom Brady in order to do that.
And it's not just Tom Brady. Let's be real. It's Tom Brady, a slew of other offensive weapons, a defense that is very stacked for the most part when they're not hurt. It's not just, Tom Brady fixed us.
Perpetually bad team that's at the top of the drafts.
Yeah.
Loads up their roster with cheap rookie players playing on rookie deals, and then some quality free agents that they're able to afford. Much the formula. Cleveland Browns, Cincinnati Bengals, quarterbacks on rookie contracts are able to do that. So, and some people will say Bruce Arians. It's not Bruce Arians. We're going to get to that on the next show, but it's coming. The helmet
I still have it.
Coming.
Just for those of you know, it isn't. We haven't given it away yet. I know we're slacking. I'm not going to point fingers at who's slacking. I don't know which direction he is on this, but whatever.
Well, part of it was I was like, which of your 5 email addresses do I send these things to? Because I've got 30
of them. Just send them to VB. You know which one.
Okay, all right, I'll get that over there. That sounds like he did not say VD.
No, VB as in Visual Basic. It's old.
Well,
it's
Brian,
really, really old.
Brian, I don't want to get into some of the personnel things. Most of this game was pretty ugly. I mean, outside of Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, those are the guys. Offense didn't do the defense any favors in this one. So that's where I'm going to leave it. There's no need to beat a dead horse. We're going to be looking ahead for months now on how this roster will be reshaped, who we think we'll do some evaluations, maybe position by position. We'll try and come at you maybe twice a week here, but I wanted to definitely verify after Mike Tomlin's press conference. Still no word on Kevin Colbert, still no official word with Keith Butler, so we don't have to blow smoke on some of those things. And we'll start going through some of the free agents that are available and some other things this team is going to need, perhaps. And I'm just going to leave it there.
Go Bills. Bills Mafia. Go Bills.
Yeah. I'm telling you.
I don't care. The
last few times in Pittsburgh, those people, I mean, I like the Bills Mafia guys and Del Reed, who was one of the founders there, and I know some other people up in Buffalo that are dear friends. But, man, some of that fan base rubbed you the wrong way, too. But
that's every fan base.
Let's wrap this with one last thought here, and we're talking about disappointment. Are you more disappointed if you're a New England Patriots fan in the way that turned out? I think you are, because it's a division opponent. It's not somebody who's just been in the last 2 Super Bowls or has won one, or Andy Reid, for that matter. It's been coaching for like 23 years. That's had a ton of success. You get whipped like that, especially when you were able to beat this team by only throwing the ball 3 times earlier in the year. It's a team you've owned before. That's kind of tough. It's kind of like getting swept by the Bengals, I think, for me. But at the same time, I think if you're a realistic New England fan and you lost Tom Brady and you feel you have the architect in Bill Belichick and you drafted back Jones, you got some free agents, I think you're in a similar position where you're at least happy that this team is back in the playoff discussion. You're probably just a lot more salty about how you lose. I think the bigger disappointment is the Arizona Cardinals. who just fell off a cliff. You've got a top overall pick, Kyler Murray. You've got all kind of nice fancy moves like with DeAndre Hopkins that they've made, and
they got a lot of contracts
Watt.
going on there. They got a lot of change coming this offseason too.
Yeah, and Buda Baker, at least he's fine. Nothing serious that happened with him. He was able to fly home or whatnot. But I mean, just the expectations. You talk about a team that had been in the basement for a good portion of time, and they get all of these things that everybody wants: the shiny college coach, the shiny toy first overall pick quarterback, and they did it twice because the other guy, what was the other guy?
Rosen, wasn't
Rosen? Yeah, it was Rosen, but busted out. And Mason Rudolph's already better than him. He's no worse than at least the fifth best of his quarterback class, if you think about it already. And he's the sixth guy picked. So at no worse. And I would even argue that he might be better than Sam Darnold. So, but that's for another day. I'm going to table that. But just saying this, the Cardinals, they were atop. They were flying high for the top seed in the NFC, perhaps, and go all the way out to not even winning their division, playing on the road and getting just stomped by a division opponent, another division rival, and they can't sit too well. And you're thinking this team's going to turn the corner. What else do you need to do? And now you've got some real problems because you look at the Steelers free agents. There aren't a whole lot of names that pop off the page as must bring back. And we're going to get to those lists maybe later this week. Maybe we'll jump on one more time for a quick show. But Brian, thanks for joining me once again. Oh, you didn't really give your opinion though on what's more disappointing there.
What's more disappointing, us
Steelers or one
Patriots?
of these other teams? Yeah.
Look, I think that Arizona is more disappointing than any of these other scenarios, simply because the amount of money they've invested in their defense, the amount of the way they were playing earlier in the season, the fact that they were in contention for the top seed. But if you really want to know, to me, the most disappointing scenario in the league right now, that would be the Baltimore Ravens. Oh, gee, who said they would lose out? Who was it who said they'd lose every game the rest of the year after they lost to us? Who was it?
That way. Yeah, I'm going to go but. Losing guy.
Hell with that, but nonsense.
Losing some of the players like Marcus Peters or losing Lamar Jackson doesn't help. You got Tyler. Yeah, I know, but I'm going to.
I don't care.
J.K.
I called
Dobbins.
it. I don't care.
And somebody else. For me, though, it's right within the same division. The other team that they were crowning the paper champions for the Super Bowl, the Browns. And it's just,
Look,
I'm not
you know
to
my
pile on
opinion
them
on
some
Baker.
more, but
So you know my opinion on Baker. I don't think
been-
Baker's the guy to get you there. I've said it all along. So I'm not disappointed in the way that they collapsed, because to me, that's what I expect out of that guy.
and so have I. And you remember
he
me.
was hurt too. So whatever.
Hey, you remember what I said about when they made that trade for Odell Beckham, and I called Baker Mayfield Eli Manning, and I caught so much grief.
How much grief
and
did we get for saying Odell made his life off of one catch and is overrated? How much grief did we
people
get?
trying to tell us they were a 13-win team this year, and I said, you look at the same variety of factors like the strength of schedule and everything else. I looked at Baltimore before they even had those injuries and said they were going to have the same problems with their offensive line that the Steelers have. And, it works out just a little bit differently because Zeitler and Villanueva are more capable of run block, and they're not like a pass team. They were the worst at it the previous season. I don't know where they finished here. So we shall see. Just so somebody knows, I don't know. Where are we going to go? I think the next show we'll look at some free agents, and then we'll start going through some report cards. So I think that's where we're headed with this. I don't plan on talking about quarterbacks anytime soon because I'm already sick of seeing and hearing about it. No, I don't want Marcus Mariota. No, I don't want Gardner Minshew. No, I don't want Nick Foles. And no, I'm not trading for Deshaun Watson. And we'll have some things to talk about with that as well. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. We're going to do the helmet-worthy stuff here in the next show or two for sure. I'll get off my lazy ass and make sure I get those to Brian. It hasn't been all lazy ass. I've been sick, okay, man? Sick and busy. Personal life. Yeah, the little world's tiniest violin. Yeah, I'm going to censor that one out. I'll take the time for that. I will make your smart-ass comment irrelevant there. So anyways, my name's Joe. His name's Brian. As always, we encourage everyone out there until next time to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.